it's more pronounced. The volcanic sites, because you have, I think it's probably simply due to the fact that volcanic sites have more clay in the soil. There's a higher percentage of clay, not a lot still, believe me, but there's just more clay than you would find in marine sediments. As a result, you know, because all soils are classified by, in terms of their structure, by the amount of, by three things. The amount of sand, the largest particle size, silt, a medium particle size, and clay. All soils around the planet, that's the way you classify them. And so with the volcanics, you have a much higher percentage of clay. And because clay is such a tiny particle size, and because those particles are now very close together, moisture doesn't leave that soil as quickly. That's why clay holds moisture longer. Okay, so it's only because there aren't any spaces between the particles. Okay, like sand has. That's why sand is like a sieve. There's lots of space between the particles, and so moisture easily flows through. And so in the volcanics, we held moisture later into the year, and even when this event occurred, the dehydration, I think there was just so much more available moisture in the clay soils, they didn't have that same pronounced drying. So maybe that explains that to some degree. That is true. They still had it, big time, sure, but not to the level, not to the same level.
You get a lot of your cooling off from what you call the Van Duzer corridor.
Yes.
So did this air come from a different direction or something?
Yeah. This was not the Van Duzer. The Van Duzer, you're right. The Van Duzer occurs when the valley floor in the summer warms up, and what happens, and then hot air rises. You know, as air warms, it rises, and so every day in the summer, we have that. Every single day, we have that effect that occurs every day, depending upon the level of heat. The higher the heat, the more pronounced the effect, because the more you warm the valley floor, you know, you're going to get a greater and faster rise of air, and what happens is it pulls that cold ocean air from the Van Duzer underneath it, and it replaces the warm air that's rising. Okay, and so that's a different effect.
So this air came from somewhere.
This is more like the winds that come from the east, you know, that we get occasionally in the summer that are very, very hot, you know, that come off the desert, off the high desert. It's a different direction altogether.
Are you worrying that this is going to be a pattern?
No. Well, you know, the thing is that here's the thing. I mean, every year we run into something we've never seen, right? And I think, okay, I'll be able to use this someday. I'll be dead before this happens again, I'm sure. You know, I mean, next year will be another new thing. But what was fascinating to me was that I learned a big lesson that don't always trust what your eyes see. Don't always trust what your eyes see. Trust some other instincts. You know, trust other instincts as well. And but you know, I hope it doesn't happen again, frankly, because it just was scary, you know, to see that happen. And we were lucky that we had such a large crop to start with, that we could afford to lose all that weight. I mean, if we'd had 2 tons to the acre and that happened, oh man, it'd be devastating, you know. That'd be a huge loss.
A lot of the same thing.
So luckily you had
home gardener last year with their gardens as far as rapid growth and then.
Yeah. See, I know that people that were doing, some folks doing tomatoes and such had some weird end of season things happen for them, and
so your yield was actually larger than usual. Is that
it was in the end, but only because we started way high.
Amazing.
Way high. Yeah.
Great. It looks like it's going to be a great vintage.
No, we're very happy. Now the sugars were very elevated. They were very elevated, and it was a year where adjustment was necessary for the sugar levels.
Where do you think you're coming in with final alcohols?
Our final alcohols will be fine because we got involved. If we hadn't gotten involved, those final alcohols would have been close to 16.5.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I know. In fact, I won't mention my friend's name, but you know her well. And her first fruit was coming in at 32% sugar.
Woohoo!
Our highest came in at 28.5 or
yeah, we were shooting for 29.
We were shooting for 29, couldn't make it. But I mean, that's what it was, and so you had to make a correction, or you would have had very hot, sickly sweet wines.
It's good it's so dense in flavor.
Oh, no, it's great, oh, no, I mean, believe me, you could have, well, yeah.
And then what does that adjustment look like? How do we adjust that sugar?
Well, let's put it this way, my son used to work for Earth 2O, which is the water company in Central Oregon,
Oh, yeah.
that has that massive spring near Maupin, I think it is, or,
Yeah.
okay, the president of the company, Steve, I don't know if you guys know Steve, he and his wife are tremendous people. He called my son, he goes, "What in the hell is your dad doing? He's my best customer in the state of Oregon this month." So that tells you a little bit. You know, you had to do what was necessary. You had to bring the wines down to reasonable levels. They're still not low.
You should have saved all that water you took out of 07 and put it into.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
2 years later.
No, exactly. Exactly. What's that all about? I'm totally with you on that. You just can't. Unfortunately, you can't preserve that stuff. It has to be preserved. So anyhow, so some adjustment had to be made for the wines to be balanced, and we think we did make good choices.
How about acid levels?
Well, there you go. There you go. Now,
That's
acid
the
levels.
upside of the.
Good. That's okay. We're going to be putting it all on the table here. I mean, you guys, it's important to be straightforward. And anybody who's in the business of making wine had 2 issues this year: very, very high sugar levels and very little acidity. Now, what normally would happen if you just had dehydration without a lot of heat before, then the acid would be concentrated too. You would expect, right? Well, that wasn't the case. The reality was that some of that high heat that we had, including